The Queen has arrived in Germany, and Europe is not ready for what Eala is bringing to Stuttgart. There are moments in sport that go beyond scoreboards and rankings. Moments where you stop watching an athlete and start witnessing a movement. What is unfolding right now across the clay courts of Europe is one of those moments, and it has a name. Eala, 20 years old, world number 46, and somehow already the most talked about player heading into the 2026 Porsche Tennis Grand Prix in Stuttgart, Germany. Not because she is seeded, not because she is the defending champion, but because wherever this young Filipina goes, an army follows, courts transform, and the tennis world is forced to take notice whether it planned to or not. Let us go back to where this story really begins, because context matters. Hey, April 7th, 2026. Linz, Austria. The Upper Austria Ladies, a WTA 500 event. Eala steps onto center court to face home crowd favorite Julia Grabher in the opening round of her clay season. On paper, this should be a hostile environment. Austrian fans rallying behind their local hero on Austrian soil. But nobody sent that memo to the Filipino diaspora. Filipino fans showed up in force in Linz, waving Philippine flags and handmade banners at center court in support of Eala. Inquirer.net, turning what should have been enemy territory into something that felt suspiciously like a home match. The crowd was loud. The energy was electric. And Eala, feeding off every chant and every roar, delivered. She defeated Julia Grabher 6-4, 6-3, GMA News Online, in a dominant, composed straight-set performance that announced her clay season had officially begun. After the final point, she walked to the net, turned to the crowd, and did something that encapsulated everything about who she is. She addressed them directly, first in English, then in Tagalog. I did not expect that there would be many of you here in Linz, but thank you for following my matches and see you tomorrow. Manila Bulletin, she said, her voice carrying across a court that had just become, for a few hours, the most Filipino place in all of Austria. That moment went viral before the clay dust had even settled. But sport, as it always does, demanded more. 2 days later came the next test. World number 14 Jelena Ostapenko, former French Open champion, one of the most dangerous ball strikers on the entire tour. A player who had received a first-round bye and was waiting, fresh and hungry, for whoever emerged from the lower half of the draw. That person was Eala. And the match that followed was the kind of tennis that reminds you why this sport can break your heart and lift your soul in the same afternoon. Eala raced to a 4-0 lead in the second set after dropping the first set 6-4, but Ostapenko mounted a stunning comeback, GMA News Online, winning 6 straight games to take the match 6-4, 7-5. The Filipina had leads in both sets. She had chances at 5-5 in the second. She was this close. But Ostapenko, a former Grand Slam champion for a reason, found another gear and closed it out. The loss was painful. The result was not a disaster, though. It was a battle, and the crowd knew it. Here is where the story takes a turn that no tennis analyst saw coming. With the crowd mostly in support of Eala at 4-1 down in the second set, Ostapenko called out one member of the crowd in particular, the Tennis Gazette, visibly frustrated by the noise and the passion being directed toward her opponent. A former French Open champion, one of the most experienced players in the draw, was rattled. Not by Eala's ground strokes, by Eala's fans. The Filipino community had gotten so deep into Ostapenko's head that she had to address them during the match itself. When your supporters can do that, you are not just playing tennis. You are commanding the entire psychological atmosphere of the arena. That is a weapon that rankings do not measure. And that weapon was about to be transported from Austria to Germany. Because here's where the plot twist arrived. April 9th, 2026. Less than 48 hours after walking off the court in Linz, the news broke. Eala had secured a spot in the main draw of the Stuttgart Open, the Porsche Tennis Grand Prix in Germany. The tournament's official social media account confirmed that Eala would replace Qin Wenjing, the Paris Olympic gold medalist who withdrew due to injury. GMA News Online. The official statement from tournament organizers was careful, deliberate, and telling in its framing. They did not simply announce an injury replacement. They promoted it. Unfortunately, Qin Wen has to withdraw due to injury, The statement read, "But fans can now look forward to seeing Alexandra step in. Look forward to seeing her step in." That is not filler language. That is an organization understanding exactly what Alexandra Eala brings to a venue and choosing to market it accordingly. Within hours of that announcement, the Filipino internet did what the Filipino internet does. It erupted. Philippine media outlets, YouTube channels, fan pages, and diaspora networks across Europe exploded with one unified message. The Queen was coming to Germany. Coverage of her travel to Stuttgart was framed not as an athlete catching a connecting flight, but as a state visit. This is the Alex Eala effect, and it operates on a level that most players spend entire careers trying and failing to achieve. Eala, just 20 years old, has become one of the international crowd darlings of 2026 after a magnificent run that pushed her to a career-best ranking of number 29 in the WTA rankings earlier this year. Phil Starr. That peak ranking came from a brilliant run at the Miami Open, a tournament where she announced herself to the global tennis world in spectacular fashion. She has slipped back to 46 since then. But rankings are a trailing indicator. They measure where you have been, not where you are going. And where Eala is going is directly into the heart of the European clay season. Now let us talk about what she is walking into. Because Stuttgart is not a warm-up event. This is not a tune-up tournament filled with mid-ranked players finding their clay legs. The field is led by world number 1 Aryna Sabalenka, alongside reigning clay queen Iga Swiatek and American star Coco Gauff. Also in the mix are top contenders Elena Rybakina, Jasmine Paolini, Mira Andreeva, and Alina Svitolina. Spin.ph. These are players who have combined for multiple Grand Slam titles and who treat the top 10 of the WTA rankings like a permanent residence. Ostapenko is the defending champion, having defeated Aryna Sabalenka in the 2025 championship match. Tennis 365. The same Ostapenko who just defeated Eala in Linz, by the way, using championship composure to come from behind in both sets. The gauntlet does not get more real than this. But here's what makes the Stuttgart story so compelling. In a draw stacked with Grand Slam champions, former title holders, and top-ranked contenders, Eala enters as a player with little to lose and plenty to gain. The Daily Chronicle. She is not carrying the burden of being the favorite. She is not defending a title. She is not managing the pressure of a top seeding or the weight of expectation that comes with being ranked number 1. She is walking in as a direct replacement, a player who was not even on the original draw sheet, and she is doing it with a fan base that is already mobilizing across Stuttgart, which happens to host one of the largest Filipino communities in all of Germany. Do the math. The Porsche Arena holds over 4,500 spectators. The Filipino diaspora in Stuttgart is enormous. This is not speculation. This is logistics. Alex Eala is about to turn an indoor clay court in southern Germany into the loudest Filipino gathering in Europe. And her tennis is more than capable of matching the noise. Stuttgart marks Eala's second clay appearance and 10th event of her 2026 campaign. A crucial stretch as she looks to build rhythm on the surface against the very best with the French Open looming in late May. Spin.ph. Her coaching team, anchored by Sandro Vieni on site and supported by Joan Bosch at the Rafa Nadal Academy in Mallorca, has been preparing her specifically for this clay swing. The Linz win over Grabher was technically clean and physically dominant. The loss to Ostapenko was competitive, played in margins, not decided by golf in class. Clay had been unkind to Eala in previous seasons. Last year, she exited in the second round of every clay event she entered. This year feels different. The body is ready. The game plan is sharper, and the confidence that comes from having already defeated players like Sabalenka, Swiatek, and Keys on the biggest stages imaginable is not something that disappears between surfaces. Her first match in Stuttgart is a fascinating one in its own right. She faces Leylah Fernandez, the Canadian star of Filipino heritage, in the opening round. Both Eala and Fernandez are left-handed, adding an extra layer of intrigue to what promises to be an explosive duel between two of the world's fast-rising stars. Phil Starr. Think about what this match means on a cultural level. Two young women of Filipino heritage, both playing left-handed, squaring off on one of the most prestigious indoor clay courts in Europe, while thousands of Filipinos fill the stands and millions more tune in from across Southeast Asia and beyond. The WTA has spent years trying to crack open Asian markets beyond China and Japan. Eala is doing it without billion-dollar academy systems or government-funded tennis programs. She is doing it with talent, grit, and a diaspora that simply refuses to let her play alone.